We are KCPS.
This is my fourth student town hall meeting since I've started. I try to do 2 of these every single year, and what we do is, our first one was over at East High School. We had an opportunity to meet with all of the students that attend schools pretty much on that side of town that are secondary students. And then today is for all of the students that are kind of on the other part of town, where we get a representative sample of students from each of our schools to come in and just have a general conversation with me. 2 nights ago, I had an opportunity to meet with our Teacher Advisory Council. There were about 7 teachers who showed up for that out of the 8 that were invited. And we just had a real conversation about what is it that you all believe we need to do better? How do we better educate our children? How do we work together? How do we make sure that even as adults that you all are taken care of? Because the truth is, teaching is a very hard job. And I think some of you who know, you've been in classrooms where a teacher has about 30 kids or so, and all 30 kids kind of learn differently. They show up with lives that are so far apart. Some of us have a lot of similarities that are in common, but nevertheless, our goal as educators is to make sure that we're doing our due diligence to help break the cycle of poverty, the cycle of hopelessness that quite a few of our kids come from. And then we know that through education, anybody in here, regardless of what you're going through right now, you can actually break that cycle. I'm sitting here as a living example of somebody who was dealt a real bad hand in life. But because I went to school and I took advantage of those opportunities and worked hard, it has now allowed for me to be in the position that I'm in. And so today is a day about you. You guys have an hour with me. And I want you to kind of tell me the good, the bad, the ugly. I will try to do everything in my power to answer your questions. I have also invited some staff members here who will take notes. And what I will tell you is that some of the things that people have recommended last year, we've put some of those things into practice. A prime example would be middle school. Middle school was concerned about not necessarily being able to have a lot of options for extracurriculars. So this year, we boosted up our extracurricular offerings at middle school. We have more kids now that are playing in basketball. We have flag football we're doing right now. Some of you who are now in high school, you know when you were in middle school in this district, those options weren't available. They are available now. We've upgraded our amenities in terms of the fields. These kids who are here this year get the full benefit of being able to run on first-class tracks, play on first-class football fields, have new basketball courts. So we've done a lot of these things based on what we heard from students last year, and we want to be able to hear from you all today. And so we think that it's very important that you guys just open up and be honest with me. And yeah, I do want to hear the things that are of concern, but I also want to hear what do you feel is going well, right? I want to hear both. So let's get right into it. This is totally unscripted, so I'm ready. Let's go. Name and school you're from, and even your grade level.
My name is Wanitra, and I'm from Southeast High School. I'm a 10th grader. I think in school, well, in my school, like, our learning is good. Like, besides us learning in school, we learn pretty good. But I feel like we should have more activities, like clubs, because I feel like our school focuses on more, like, sports, and there's nothing for other children to do that don't want to play sports. So I feel like we should have more clubs in our school.
All right, so let me kind of give you an answer to that recommendation. I fully agree. We have a strategic plan, and I don't know if any of you understand what a strategic plan is. A strategic plan is a 5-year plan that we kind of developed together with the community. In fact, about 170 students in middle school and high school actually participated in helping us to develop this strategic plan. In there's what is called Goal 2, and that's basically the whole child. So we want to make sure that we're meeting the needs of the whole student, not just academically, but socially and emotionally. And then number C in that area talks about increased extracurricular activities, social organizations, and those types of things. We 100% believe that extracurriculars is more than just sports. And so what you have to be able to do is to be able to figure out what is it that you want to get up that can be very successful as a social organization. Figure out is there a teacher in there that you're really crazy about that you think might have that same interest that may want to sponsor? Because you need to have a sponsor. Most of these teachers will step up and sponsor if there's enough students who are saying we want this type of social organization up and running. Teachers will step up. One of the things I did as a teacher, not only did I coach basketball, but I was also the drill team instructor. I was fresh, kind of out of college, by the time I went to teach, so I was still in shape. So I was an alpha. I'm an alpha. So I was able to teach kids how to step. So we did a drill team, and all of those kids who like to dance, we taught them how to step, and then they put on shows, for their parents. And I did that because there were a group of kids who came to me and said, Mr. Bedell, at the time I didn't have a doctorate degree, I want to learn I want to step, I want to dance. Can you do that? So go and talk to people, because you have teachers over there that will step up and make that happen. All right. Okay, let's go, because I heard people were writing questions all over the place.
Okay, so I go to Paseo. My name is Amelia Sewing. I'm a senior. So at Paseo, we are performing arts school, and we have a lot of focus on the arts. But it's hard because in the core curriculum, it's more focused on like getting points, making sure your grade is up rather than actually learning the material. And a lot of the stuff the curriculum is based on the books, but even now we don't have enough books to go around that. And even if we do have books, some of the teachers don't even use the books. And like sometimes if we do say something, it's taken as disrespect rather than like trying to communicate our worries. And
Okay, so when you say you don't have books, because it's my understanding that at the secondary level for all of our middle and high school students, you guys have laptops, and on the laptops, the textbooks are available.
yeah.
So, but you're saying like in terms of, let's say you don't have a laptop, are there not class sets
Yeah,
that are available?
there are class sets.
But
It's in some classes.
Okay.
A lot of the books are getting like people will take the books away, and so
okay,
I'm not too focused on the books.
It's the
I'm meaning
content?
more about like not the content, but how the teachers go about like giving us the information. They're more
Okay.
worried about like, or at least we're trying to be more worried about like if we have our points for this, if we get our points for this, rather than like actually gaining the knowledge.
yeah, and what we should be doing, we should be, the state of Missouri requires, and most states do this, everybody, they actually require a set of standards that they expect every kid who graduates out of their high schools to be able to know, understand, and be able to apply in life. And so each year, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education will come together, and those people will meet, and they generally will invite teachers and superintendents and principals from all around the state to form a committee that will say, based on what's happening in the world, what is it that we expect the kids in the state of Missouri to be able to know and do and learn, and that they should be proficient at the point that when they graduate so they can be competitive. So what in essence, what it does then is it forces us then to say that these are the standards we have to teach, so we need to write the curriculum and make sure that it's aligned to Missouri state standards, right? Because ultimately, when you take your EOCs and when the middle school kids take their MAP assessments, all of that is going to be aligned to what the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education is saying you guys should know. And so it, in essence, does force us then to have to be able to say that we need to, and the point thing I'm trying to understand, they should be teaching to the standards. Now, there's a style, right? Everybody has their own style. I'm different than any other superintendent. Some of you have had a couple of superintendents. Every teacher is different, right? And so what we say is the what, here's the what. The what is what the state says we have to teach. How you go about teaching it should be based on the style of the teacher, right? And then you should be innovative. I went into a phenomenal class yesterday at Northeast, and the teacher was teaching The Life of Pi. And for these 10th graders, she made that book come alive. Like, I'm in the class and I'm watching these kids and the activities they were doing. It was phenomenal. And all the teacher did was just kind of stand around and facilitate. But you know why it worked for that teacher? Because number one, she got to know who her kids were. She got to learn their different learning styles or learning modalities. And then she planned. And she planned outside of the schoolhouse. So when she got in there, all she had to do was walk around and just check for understanding. but it was awesome. It was awesome. So it is around the style of the teacher, and that's something that we are working on. We got a big summer institute that we're doing for the first time in recent history. How many of the teachers that's been here for 20 years or more, have we done a summer institute where we've brought all of our teachers together to really go deep into how we need to make sure that we're aligned with our curriculum, professional development, those kind of things? Do we? No? So this is our first year doing that because we want to do a better job of making sure that you're engaged and making sure that you understand the why behind what we're teaching.
Thank you.
Great question. Post up.
All right. So my name is Michaela. I'm a sophomore and I go to Bedell. So with our school, it's like the teaching style. They only want to teach it one way. Like they always say the district. Like they always worried about like our test scores and like we need to do this before the test scores. But like some children don't learn the same way. So like we be learning new stuff every day. And they just so focused on like do we learn it instead of like did we grasp it for real. And then they want to give us like these little mini quizzes and stuff. But like they never really like teach us how we need to be taught.
Yeah, and that's the piece that I just talked about, that whole piece of really checking for understanding and being able to make sure that you guys are learning the concepts. Remember, I'm a parent too, everybody. I got 3 kids. I come home and I have an opportunity to ask those same questions. What did you learn today? You know what I often hear too, especially from my son? It was a boring day, right? And so then the question is, what is it that we're doing also as students to then make sure that we're holding our educators accountable, right? By just going up to them and saying, this isn't working for me. Is there other ways that we can make sure that we can teach? Because at the high school level in particular, and I'm telling you this, high school teachers are kind of protective. It's like this is their world. This is how they teach it. And I remember when I became a high school principal having to go in and really work with some of my teachers that had been there for 30 years, were kind of set in their way of I taught it this way for 30 years, so this is how I'm going to continue to teach it. And the truth is that is no longer relevant to the type of kids that you all are. You're in a world right now where it's almost like instant gratification is just there for you all. Everything is, the answers are there. All you got to do is Google something and you get your answers. And we then also expect that you cannot continue to learn in an environment where it's almost this chalkboard age era of learning. That's not what I saw yesterday when I went into that classroom at Northeast. It was completely relevant to the way that kids are learning today, and all of those kids are eating that book up. And some of them watched the movie, and I went and spoke to every kid in that classroom. Some of them said, I did watch the movie, but the book is a lot better. There's a lot of things in the movie that's in this book that wasn't even in the movie. But that teacher made them thirst. And that's the thing. You can't bring a horse into the water and make it drink. But I can tell you what, if you can make it thirst, then it will drink. And that's what this teacher has figured out with her kids over there. But that is something that we are working on, and that's part of that whole summer institute. Great question.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm Kale. I'm a freshman at Paseo. One of my biggest concerns at Paseo is the education, how we learn. I came from Raytown. I started taking high school classes in 7th grade. Coming to Paseo, I already had my freshman credits. And something that I've really noticed in the classes is that there aren't any challenges for people who are at the top of their class. So a typical day for me is finish my work within the first 10 minutes of class and then go down and practice my cello. That's pretty much what I do all day. And something that I'd want more of is more challenges, more work, something to push you further ahead and to better yourself.
So what we're doing right now, and I'm glad you're in here. I know we have a couple of people here from school leadership that's listening, but we are in the process of working on adding more advanced placement classes into our schools. I don't think any of you, some of you in high school understand that advanced placement are AP classes. And these are classes where if you take the class and you do well, it gives you an additional quality point towards your GPA. So instead of a 4.0 scale, it puts you on a 5.0 scale. But if you take the class and you successfully take that exam, you're able to, and you score 3, 4, or 5, you also then will get a college credit. And what we know right now in our school system is that we have some middle schools that don't even offer pre-AP, right? So what we said was that we were going to work for this upcoming school year to be able to offer pre-AP. Last summer was the first summer I sent a handful of teachers to Rice University down in Houston to get their pre-AP and AP certification. And then we also sent a handful of teachers over to Washburn, out in, I think it's Washburn in Kansas, to get some AP training. We also said, and I charged our deputy superintendent with this, is that AP Human Geography is a pretty rigorous class, but it's very reasonable for a 9th grader. And so we have teachers who are going to go and get AP Human Geography training this summer so that we can begin to offer AP Human Geography in the 9th grade. So we can start introducing more of our youngsters that want to take these type of rigorous classes to those rigorous classes at an earlier phase. But you're absolutely right. Our district is absent of that. I'm not certain that we even have AP Calculus in any of our high schools. We may have it in one high school, but you know, it's a huge disservice to some of our students who really are high achievers and they want to go further, but because of the limited offerings that we have, you know, it's unacceptable. And I'll tell you another thing that's unacceptable to me. You guys got to remember, I come from a high school where we offered about 18 AP classes when I was a high school principal. And I also supervised a bunch of high schools that had a plethora of offerings that is just not right now available, but I'm going to make it available for you all, is that we also don't offer in some of our schools a requirement that kids need to take 2 years of a foreign language. You know what happens when you don't take 2 years of a foreign language? It automatically eliminates you from even being able to apply to a K-State, an MU, a KU. Some of those universities, your minimum requirement is that you have to take 2 years of foreign language. And so these are things that I've learned in almost the 2 years that I've been here that we're going to have to do differently, and we have a plan in place to make that happen. Why don't you just go back there and wait in line behind her? No? You sure?
My name is Sophia Auden, and I'm from Northeast Middle School, 8th grade. Our school, it's like students don't feel safe. With all the security guards, yeah, that might help, but like this school year, I can name like 4 students that like just stopped going to the school because of the fights and all this other stuff.
Yeah, so one of the things we're having in this city, and I think you all know that, most of you, if you follow the news, you know last year we had record highs in murders, right? And the last 2 years have been record highs in murders. There's a lot of stuff that is happening in the communities that's spilling into our schools. I just received an email yesterday about apparently this murder that took place over the weekend, and how there were some of our students in some of our middle school and high schools who were actually witnesses.
It was a kid from our school. He stopped coming to school, and
he was the one that got murdered?
Yeah, he died yesterday.
Oh, this was yesterday. So that happened yesterday, but something else happened over the weekend. And so like this stuff is spilling into our schools. And what I have done, I would say I basically had a meeting last Tuesday with about 100 people. And I kind of told them about some of the concerns that I have as a superintendent around things that are beyond the control of a superintendent, teachers, and the 2,200 employees. And that we're going to have to require and demand that this community steps up and do more to help control some of the violence that's happening, because it does become an impediment to you all being able to learn. This stuff there's gang-related things, there's neighborhood-related things that are happening, and you know we even have people calling on us to say, I'm worried about my child's life. Well, I can move your child to another school, but I can't remove the community. I can't remove the child from the community. So how do we then work with the mayor and the community to come together to begin to go knock on doors? And that's the next phase of what I'm going to do. We're going to go knock on doors. We're going to go into these communities and we're going to talk to people and say enough is enough. Like, we have to come together and we have to prevent this, because kids should not be fearful. I shouldn't be in a school system where a school bus is driving elementary kids home and a bullet goes through the window of a school bus, nearly missing the head of a little first grader at an elementary school, right? This is bigger than the school system. This is a community mobilization that needs to take place. And that's what I'm working on now with the community leaders.
And a problem at our school is uniforms. Like, there are so many kids who go to, like, ISS just for not having a wristband or, like, just not wearing the proper uniform. And, like, some people say it's expensive or whatever because, like, not everybody has, like, new uniforms all the time.
Yeah, but uniforms, I know we have provided uniforms at no charge, especially during our Back to School Summer Fest. One of the things that you can easily do to solve the uniform thing too is work with, you know, you could have City Year, you have those people there, work with those entities to have some uniforms on hand. So like when I was a principal, if kids came to school out of uniform, I had a room where they could go in, and it was with my communities and schools. They would go in that room and they had to change out, right? So because I'm not interested in suspending you because I need you in school. Every instructional minute matters. But they would change out of their clothes and they would put on a uniform, and at the end of the day, they would go back and they would get their clothes. And if their clothes were dirty, we had a washer and dryer. We didn't have a problem washing the clothes for them because we understand that the struggle is real. And you know, it may be embarrassing to some of you all that I'm saying this, but the struggle is real, and many of you are going through the struggle. Our job is to try to figure out how can we best support you and not just throw you under the bus because you can't afford a uniform. There are ways that we can work that out, and I think we have to be creative as educators, especially as principals, to make sure that that's not a barrier. If you're requiring people to have uniforms, then you need to have backup and you need to have some stuff on hand so that that's not a barrier.
We have that. But
All right, you got one more because we got other people waiting.
the uniforms that they provide us run out, and we just automatically get sent to ISS.
Yeah, and I think that's something that, like I said, we can continue to work on because to me, I tell you what I told you what we did. It's simple. There's a lot of uniforms that are available around the city that we can purchase at little to no cost, and we stock our room with it. And the thing is, you got to have a system in place to require people to turn those uniforms back in at the end of the day. You just can't hand them out and then not expect to get them back. And so you have to have a system too so that kids understand. And if you have kids who can't afford it, then that's the opportunity for us. You know, we have free uniforms, right? They just need to talk to the principal or talk to the counselor where we can provide that for them if they just don't have it at all. We have that ability.
My name is Taylor Jennings. I go to Central, and I'm a junior. I wanted to talk about how a couple of teachers that I have, like, they just genuinely, like, don't care. Like, they'll say they care, like, they'll try to teach, but, like, their patience will run thin with our whole class. And if, like, we just, like, a couple students not doing something right, they'll just shut the whole class down and be like, okay, work by yourself. And if you can't get it, you can come up here, but I'm not going to come to you. Like, it's on you if you don't get this.
All right, so let me ask you this, Taylor. Have you had an opportunity to go and talk to your assistant principal or principal about some of those concerns and, like, give them specifics?
Lately, the principal and vice principals have been, like, a bit busy with discipline and all that to deal with certain academics or other things.
Okay, and so what I would say to you, I think you have a principal that if you come to him and you tell him, listen, I'm not learning in these certain classrooms, he will be at those classrooms, right? And I know he will. You know, this is, once again, that was always my approach as a principal. If a kid came and told me, just like several times you've come to me about some supports and I've, made phone calls on your behalf, generally a principal will follow up. And if you tell me I'm not learning in my third period class, then I'm telling you, don't worry, I will be to your third period class to see for myself what's going on. But they also have to know, and discipline is a part of the job, but the larger aspect of the job is that they're instructional leaders. Their job is to make sure that they're going into classrooms and making sure that kids are getting what they need. And I think if teachers continue to see that, then teachers understand that there will be a level of accountability. A lot of this is just about accountability. We're all held accountable. I'm held accountable, right? If I don't advance this school system, I don't get to stay around. It's just that simple. And neither should I want to stay around. If I can't educate you all and have the workforce of people here that genuinely believe that you can learn, because a lot of this is about expectations, right? We kind of, you see how kids show up, and then we kind of have expectations based on how kids show up. But if we begin to speak positive words of affirmation, we begin to have a high level of accountability, and people have to understand that you just can't, sit around and just collect a paycheck. Now, I've shared this with our coaches. We have people who coach, and I had a big meeting a couple of weeks ago, and I said to them, if you just coaching and then when the season's over with, you just abandon your kids, that's just not going to work for me. Like, we got to still keep in communication with our kids and keep their grades up so that we're not in a situation where we don't have a full track team or baseball team that's able to compete because they're ineligible. And I think for us, that's about accountability and having high expectations. But I promise you, if you go to your principal, I most certainly believe that they will be in those classrooms.
And I did want to say something about the coaches. A couple coaches, if you don't do something they like during the season, your grade might affect it during the class period or so.
And that shouldn't happen. That's completely illegal if that's happening.
I wanted to address that and have you address the teachers at Central then.
Yeah, and that's something that I'll definitely have a conversation. We have our meeting with our principals tomorrow, Thursday, and so that's something that I will definitely share with them, because what I do is I give feedback. What I'm hearing here today, we then go back and we'll share with our principals.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Hi, my name is Mark Thomas, and I go to Paseo. And there's a problem with some teachers who just don't teach. And I know I have one teacher who will stand up, go through the do now, and then sometimes he won't even tell us we have an assignment, and then he'll just sit down and don't do anything for the rest of the class. And I have another teacher who for the past week has just been playing a movie. It hasn't even been asking us questions or giving us any assignments based off of it. And when this happens, sometimes our grades will drop, and then we get in trouble for that because sometimes the principals will say, well, what are you doing wrong as a student, when it's the teachers who are messing up and they're not being held accountable for it. And that also affects my eligibility to play in concerts at school and do other stuff.
Well, I think it's important that you guys share that information. I actually have a site where you can email those concerns to. We actually have Ask the Soup at KC. Oh yeah, Let's Talk. So that's one, and then you have Let's Talk will require that you get an immediate response regarding your concerns. We need to know that. This is the reason why I'm having this right now, right? This is because I want to make sure that I'm hearing your concerns, just as I would do with a group of teachers. We did the same thing. We asked them what are some of their concerns and things that we believe are stopping them from being as effective as they need to be. We do the same thing with principals. And so we absolutely want to hear it. And I think, it's fine to speak in generalities out here, but if I can get specifics, it makes it a lot easier on us to be able to respond and to be able to talk to the principals and have some specific conversations. And, for us, I always believe, too, that you got to look at both sides, right? I can't just say, oh, the teacher's bad, and I haven't had a chance to go see for myself. But some of the stuff that you're saying, it's easy for me to go in the classroom, and I can tell you within 3 minutes whether it's legit or not. I promise you. So we need to know the names of that, and you can send it right through Let's Talk. That would significantly help us, and that's for any student in here.
KCPublicsschools.org. There's a little tab that you can go to. It says Let's Talk
That's what we need.
Another concern I have is the school lunches. I don't know about the other schools, but at least at mine, the lunches are just unappealing, and sometimes I just go hungry that day because it's just like gross meat glop that no one really wants to eat.
All right. Well, we did hire a new director over food services this year, and I know that we are definitely looking into that. I will tell you all, I worked in the Houston Independent School District, 215,000 students. I've worked in Baltimore County Public Schools, 113,000 students. I worked in KCPS, 15,000 students. No matter the size of the district, every time we do these town hall meetings, the food is gross in all 3 school districts. So we really do need to figure out who's doing it well out there, because it's just not. It's not. And so we do have a new director over food services that I purposely invited here because I knew a food question was coming up, so that he can hear it, so that we can look into it. Because I agree, you know, I was that kid that, truthfully, everybody, pretty much the only time I was going to eat was breakfast and lunch at school. And so that's important. And so it's important that we do look into this and see what we can do and what we can offer that's of more quality. Thank you. Portions too? Okay. The portions, okay.
My name is Marquise at Warfield. I'm from Central. I'm a senior. What I wanted to talk about was like the grouping at Central is, or maybe any of these schools, it's not that good, because I be in class and there's students that's far behind. Some kind of get it, some don't. And it doesn't work out for the teacher. It makes her job harder because she has to work with all these students that's at different places. And then it makes it look like she's not doing her job, but she's actually doing her best. And I don't think, like, so I think I should figure out a way to group the kids by academic performances, or figure out some way to deal with that.
So that's just simply an excellent question, I mean, that you bringing up, or just suggestion. What I know has hurt this school district in particular is that a lot of our kids are entering already behind. They can't recognize simple shapes. They don't understand the 26 letters in the alphabet. Some of them can't even count to 10. And part of the reason is because they have not been exposed to early childhood access. We only have a certain amount of seats that are available right now, probably about 1,100 or so, where people can take advantage of early childhood at no cost. That is the #1 item on my legislative agenda. And so what a legislative agenda is that I have to have 3 or 4 things that we need to advocate on that we believe will allow for us to do a better job of educating kids. And we have to do that down in Jefferson City. So I have a lobbyist that's down there working with senators and House representatives around, you know, this is what KCPS wants. I want universal early childhood available. What we do believe is that if the kids at the age of 3 and 4, and at minimum the age of 4, are getting in early, that puts them at or above grade level by the time they hit kindergarten. We're not having to perform triage. We're then, in essence, preparing kids who are going to be able to take advantage of these pre-AP and AP classes. Right now, what's happening in that area, young man, is the mayor is looking to push forward a sales tax, a 3/8 cents increase on a sales tax that will allow for us to expand more opportunities for early childhood. That's one. So when you got kids who are coming in, and then in a system where you have so many of them coming in with a lot of mobility, and mobility means that we have about 4 out of 10 of our kids across the system will start the school year and then will not finish the school year in that same classroom. And in some of our individual schools, 7 out of 10 school kids. That's the case, where only 3 of them who started at the beginning of the year will be there at the end of the year. So we have a lot of kids with mobility, right? They're showing up at different levels. And so what we said we were going to do was that we were going to take a look at data and how we support our schools moving forward. And we have our schools kind of tiered now. tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. The schools that have a lot more kids that are showing up way behind, those schools will get some additional supports like reading interventionists, math interventionists. They'll get an assistant principal. They'll get some additional supports so that we can kind of help close the gap with those kids who are behind. But we also want to give our teachers credit because our kids do show up at different levels. But are we growing our kids? So we want to look at growth. And that's something that we have taken into account. Teachers have to get credit. They may not hit proficiency, but if the kids are growing and we're closing gaps, our teachers need to be able to get credit for that. And the state has made that a major focus, which makes it a little bit fair for us now in terms of how they give us our accountability ratings. Hope that wasn't all over the place. Okay. Good question. Hello.
Hi. My name is Nora and I'm from Central Middle and I'm in the 7th grade, and what I want to talk about is the school fights. So for some reason some kids would fight or like spread gossip or make some people fight for no reason, and it just gets to my head thinking like, why?
Why? I think, hey, let's just be real in here, everybody. Social media gets a lot of things up and running, right? And I think that's something that wasn't available when a lot of us who are adults, I mean, we had our schoolyard fights, but not to the extent of what's happening with social media and how, you know, ultimately people are getting these fights started on purpose so they can somehow record and put it on World Star Hip Hop. I mean, come on now, you guys know what's going on here. You have fight sites where people are just doing it, and it's a lot of it, like I said, is around us figuring out as a community, how do we get in and how do we have these conversations with parents about the kind of things that are going on? How do we make sure that there's an accountability? And I even think we have to take a strong look at our student code of conduct. You guys are not gonna like to hear this, but when I was a high school principal, you know, we had in our student code of conduct that if you got your cell phone out and you doing inappropriate things with it, we could confiscate it. And the only way you were getting it back was that you had to pay $15 because it was in the student code of conduct that went to everybody across the district. And parents then had to come up and they had to get the phone back. So I really didn't have those kind of issues with kids going out and inciting fights or recording. And the other thing is, if you're recording, you know, and you're putting this stuff and you're posting it to the website, you're just as guilty as being involved in it. It's almost like you're an accomplice. And ultimately, that same penalty that those kids are getting that were involved in that fight spreads to you because you, in essence, are inciting and degrading the school district, and you're degrading your peers when you do that kind of stuff. But it is something that we have to continuously work on, educating our community and our kids that, you know, we don't need these unnecessary fights. We don't need people inciting fights. And it goes back to what I said earlier, right? When we talk about the murder rate here and those kind of things, a lot of this stuff is also stemming from the community and it's spilling into the school, and it's having an impact on all of us negatively. So that's the piece that we're working on with the community.
Okay.
Hello, my name is Pablo and I'm from Northeast Middle School. I'm a 7th grader. And my question is, like, school funding, like, schools with lower academic levels don't get as much funding as schools with a higher academic level.
Yeah, and so it's interesting because we're going through building the budget right now, and that is, we talk about equity. That is a big part of how we're building our budget right now. Those schools that have the struggles are going to get more moving forward. And so we've already had these conversations with principals. I will also share with you that, you know, the conversation that we had, I'll give you this example. And it doesn't pertain here to KCPS, but it could if you wanted to. We had to do this same thing in another school district that we're doing here. Principal got upset at one of the really good schools because we said, you know, we're gonna give you your staffing based on what the state says you should get, and then we're gonna go and we're gonna do a little bit more for the other schools that need more. Principal got upset. So the principal said to me that, well, that's not fair. I said, well, what's not fair to the other people in these other schools is that you kind of get to hand select your kids, right? So you get to choose your kids, and you have more people who are involved, more parents who are involved. You have a lot more resources at your hand just from the strength of the community that surrounds your school. So what I said was, but if you want to have all of these additional resources, I'm certain I don't have a problem putting you in one of those schools where we're going to give you all of those resources. I think that ended the conversation. So at the end of the day, we are going to do things in a very equitable way here, and I think it's making some people feel uncomfortable with it, but it is the right thing to do. You got to lift the schools that have been struggling. If you want to see massive school reform or transformation, I hate reform, school transformation, then we got to make sure that the schools where we have a lot of kids that are coming in with a lot of variables that are working against them, that we put more support in those schools. And that is what we're going to be doing next year.
Thank you.
All right, my name is Dre, and I'm a senior at Central. My number one concern is with college. So for Central, I know we don't get a lot of exposures to colleges. For the seniors, we only went to one college visit this year. Juniors, sophomores, and freshmen didn't go on any. I have a little brother that goes to Rockhurst, and he's a freshman, and they have college workshops, and they have workshops where they talk about just life after high school, and I think that's something that we need to bring to our schools, because when you learn about college as a junior or senior, by that time it's too late because your grades might not be there or your ACT score might not be there. So we need to work on exposing our kids to that at a younger age so they can be more prepared.
So I know that you're leaving, Dre Sean. So I know you're leaving. And it's unfortunate that we're doing all of these things now that you're leaving. But next year, we are looking to bring AVID into all of our high schools. And I want to believe, is it middle school too, Dr. Shepard? Yes. All right, we're bringing AVID in next year. And that's Advancement via Individual Determination. It's a wonderful program that actually focuses on giving kids exposure to more college. These are students that would come from families where they may be first generation college goers, or they may have had very limited folks in their family that have gone to college. We're bringing that into this district next year. It will be in all of our middle and high schools, and it really helps them with organizational skills. It helps them to become a cohort of students that can then really understand the rigors of what is going to be expected at the college level. And we're going to be giving them that exposure at a much earlier phase than what we've been doing. But that is a big focus of ours starting next year.
Michael, 8th grade, from Northeast Middle.
I was there yesterday. Go ahead.
Maintenance is one of our problems.
Okay, maintenance.
Like our auditorium, like half the seats are like not there or messed up.
All right, so let me just say to you, I had a chance to go into that auditorium. Yeah, whoa, it's rough. And I was actually in the auditorium yesterday speaking to a group of 8th graders, and what we know we need to do, so I'm trying to educate you all. I'm an educator, y'all, remember that. I was a teacher too. So let me educate you real quick on our situation here in the district. We don't have the ability to just raise our own money to take care of maintenance within our buildings, right? So what has to happen is we have to go to the community. We have to ask the community to basically allow for us to do a general bond that would allow for us to take care of some of the maintenance issues within our school. The problem is we haven't had a bond referendum passed in this city for our school district since 1966. And all these other school districts around the area are going back to the community every 2 to 3 years so that they can take care of what they're called as capital projects. So you have to raise money to do capital projects. which allows for us to put new auditoriums. It allows for us to upgrade our school facilities. Our district right now, we have a building fleet rating of a D, right? Based on a national assessment that was done 3 years ago. So what we're having to do, and we're having this conversation with my bosses, I have 9 bosses, the Board of Education, that I report to. We're having conversations with them about the state of our facilities, and that we are going to have to come to the community for some type of bond referendum. And that bond referendum may have to be in the range of $250 million to $300 million in order for us to get these buildings up to standard like they need. And so that is a part of what we're working on right now. The board is very aware of that. We're working on an educational landscape right now, because right now our school system is very inefficient. And what I mean by that is we have some schools that are operating with only 200 kids, right? But we're paying everything that you would have in a school that would have 600 kids to run that school. So we're very inefficient, and then it makes it harder to do what this young man recommended around how do we give more support to the kids who are behind. But that is a big thing that we are working on, and we'll probably be bringing some recommendations to our board sometime in the fall. Thank you.
My name is Alexis Jack. I'm a senior. I attend Southeast High School. So my question was, our school offers little programs that will help us with like the ACT and like different college institutions, but the thing is we aren't learning anything in there. So
it offers it, but
yeah,
nothing is happening?
Like ACT prep, and we're not learning anything in there that could actually help us with the ACT. So students are getting below 15s, and when we take it again, we're not getting a higher score. It's basically either the same score or a score below.
All right, so I don't have an answer for that, because the purpose of an ACT prep class is to kind of take your pre-ACT results that you had and to work with you. So that's one that I'll have to, talk to our school leadership about. They're in here and they're hearing this stuff. So I don't necessarily go that deep into the weeds, but my assistant superintendents do. And that's something that we're going to have to look into, because one of the things that I made a requirement this year was that every single kid in this school district, grades 9, 10, and 11, would take the pre-ACT. And I did that on purpose, because what I don't want to happen is that you guys get to your junior year in the spring, and the first time you're actually seeing this real test is at that point. There's a lot of stamina that needs to be built up in order to be successful on this. There's a lot of test-taking strategies that you need to utilize that will be able to help you bump up a couple of points. We know that if kids are able to score 23, 24, it opens up opportunities for scholarship access. And I can tell you, I know that if you're in front of the right people, it works, right? The right people are working with you, your scores go up. My daughter took it as a 9th grader. She went up 4 points from last year when she took it again this year as a 10th grader on the pre-ACT. And that's the kind of growth that we should be having, but also, like we also force her. Like both of our kids have to study the ACT. They don't have a choice. And so some of it is too, we gotta also say, once again, this is about a community coming together and having a high level of accountability for kids across the board. But I'm not interested in you guys just taking this just for the sake of taking it, and then we get this data back and then we're not responding to it so that you can have a higher score. That just won't work for me.
My name is Nitra, and I'm a sophomore from Southeast High School. I was back there in my chair thinking, like, we students, we supposed to help each other as being peers to one another. So, like, at our school, we have kids who go to alternative school. So, me and other students were planning a field trip to go talk to kids at alternative school. So, like, just because of your lifestyle, they should not be come to school thinking about what's going on at home. They should be able to come to school and feel better as one another. So I feel like in our district, since we get kids that get kicked out of school and go to our alternative school, we should be able to go and talk to them and tell them how it's not okay.
Yeah, and I think the best thing that you said that I absolutely want to hear from you all is, how do we hold each other accountable? Right? I mean, honestly, it's just, we got to hold each other accountable. I'm just telling you all that. And I think sometimes there are some of you in this room that have a whole lot of influence. and you're not necessarily going far enough with that influence, right? Because nobody's going to jump on you if you're popular. You know, if you're somebody that they respect, they tend to listen to you more. And I think we kind of miss those opportunities as leaders to become that voice of reason to our peers. And I love that. I mean, that's something that I would embrace. I would also embrace that if people like you all that are in here, you're chosen for a reason. But even think about the elementary kids that may reside within the areas of your schools that could use just a positive advocate, somebody that can read to them or just go spend some time. You guys have to do 40 hours of service learning. Wouldn't it be nice that maybe on some days when you get out of school, you can go over to that neighboring elementary school and knock out some service learning hours by taking a few kids and letting the teacher let you pull them out and read to them and just work with them on reading? That's how you begin to transform and turn a school district around. I tell people that when we talk about mobilization, it's all of us coming together. That's the reason why I would never oppose you guys getting out and voicing your executing on your freedom of expression, to get out and advocate on behalf of what you want. What I say is, don't make mockery of whatever that issue is because you just want to get out of class. Let it be purposeful. And that's one of the things I've been texting about 5 other superintendents today about how you all conducted yourselves a few weeks ago when people decided that they were going to protest because of the shootings in schools. You guys were wonderful. That's the kind of purpose I want you all to have, and I want the kind of purpose that you're talking about to become contagious across this district. Thank you.
Hello again, my name is Taylor Jennings. I go to Central and I'm a junior. I want to talk about, I got a couple friends that have babies, but they like to do sports too. Mm-hmm. But they can't do those because they have to go home with the babies and they can't have nobody watch them. So I want to talk about trying to get them like some type of after school care so that they can do the sports next year with us.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm wondering, we started an early Head Start program here. Right. The question is...
And we just can't do after, like they can be here,
yeah.
We just can't do it after school. And my friends...
But why not?
I don't know.
Well, that's something we can look into. We can look into it. It might very well be that it's something where it requires that we say to them, we'll have to pay you, a couple of extra dollars to stay after for an hour and a half. But that's a conversation that I think the principal can definitely have because he's the one that got that up and running for this school.
And I want to talk about tutoring.
How many minutes? 10 minutes? Okay, so we might have to cut the line. Okay. I mean, let everybody who's up now finish.
Tutoring, we only have them on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I think. But a lot of students can't make them on Tuesdays and Thursdays because we got other things going on. But I want to see if we could get sometimes in school or before school or something like that.
Yeah, and I thought that we were talking about, as we look at our master schedules, trying to build some kind of support period in. Aren't we looking at doing something like that, Dr. Shepard?
Yeah, we are looking at that. We're trying to make sure that every high school has enough that we can at least take some minutes from all the other class periods and create intervention time during the day. But we're working on that.
Yeah, so we are working on it, and we do believe that because some of our kids aren't available in the morning, some of our kids, unfortunately may be in a situation where they're having to take care of their siblings. Some of our kids, of course, after school, if they have to work or they're working on, and they're doing extracurriculars. So, there is a way that you can build it into the schedule and almost have a support period, but you'd have to be very, very intentional and very strategic in planning that so that it's just not a waste of time, that it really is a value add. Right. All right, thank you.
My name is Destiny. I'm from Central Middle School. My concern is half of our 8th graders is on the level of Algebra 1, but most of them can't take that class because they already full. And most of us got to get pushed back to pre-algebra because we can't take Algebra 1.
Yeah, so that shouldn't be the case. What really should be happening there is if you have enough demand for that, then you create an additional section of kids that would take that. And so that's part of the master schedule piece. I mean, I will tell you, we've trained our principals on master schedule this year. That was something that necessarily wasn't being done in the past. It was my understanding that a lot of the master schedules were being developed through central office, but the best people who know how to develop those are the people in the schoolhouses based on what students are requesting. And so that is an area of focus that we're having right now. We don't want kids taking pre-algebra if they have the ability to take Algebra 1. Our goal is ultimately we want every 8th grader to take Algebra 1 so they can move right into high school ready to go with geometry.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Wesley Phoenix from Southeast High School. I'm a junior. We spoke before. I prioritize my list. Prior to coming here, I spoke with students and teachers from Southeast. We feel that the school district should fund schools more so that they can fund after-school clubs more, because they're poorly funded, which is having a negative impact on them. Also, with the after-school clubs not being funded, some of them get canceled, and our band can't afford uniforms, and sometimes we can't have like team uniforms, so there has to be a lot of fundraisers and stuff. And what happens is this causes negative impact, and it decreases the school spirit. And what happens when the school spirit decreases? Obviously, people attend school less, which overall can affect academics in the school. So I know you spoke about the budget earlier and about equity, but what would be your plans as far as funding the schools more specifically for after-school clubs?
Well, I would tell you our focus, and I think what we have to do now is, as I'm out having conversations with funders, there are a lot of people who are stepping up to help fund some of our initiatives. And once we're able to secure that funding, it potentially will help us to free up resources that we then could utilize to better support our schools. But the truth is, we, as I said earlier, we're in a school system right now that is inefficient. It needs to be more efficient in order for us to do and give students everything that they deserve. And that's the piece that we're working on now. That's a big component of it in terms of the recommendations that we're going to bring to the board in the fall around, listen, we just simply can't do everything that we know we need to do with the way that this school system is set up right now. And it may take another year, but what we also know is part of doing the extracurriculars, our schools do have a budget, and they may not be large, and they may have a lot of that money allocated for, but I know as a principal, I funded my extracurricular activities, but I also went out and I wrote a grant. I wrote a 21st century grant. So we did hire a grant writer, and that grant writer is doing everything in her power to also figure out how she can help secure funds. 21st century programs are taking a cut at the federal level. So then when the cuts happen at the federal level, it impacts the state funding, which ultimately impacts our ability then to continue to do some of those after-school programs that we want to do. But we have a lot of money here in Kansas City. Our job is to get out, talk to these funders, and get them to go into our pockets to help us in those areas.
Hello, I'm Angel. I'm a sophomore at Paseo, and I wanted to ask if there is any plans or programs for students who are like undocumented. So, because I know a lot of parents or students that like don't want to ask because they're just afraid, and I would like to know so I would be able to inform them.
Yeah, so we actually have what we call the Community Plaza, and it's up at East. It's up at our James Elementary. It's up and running. I believe we started at Northeast High School too, if I'm not mistaken, right? Or is it just on those two sites? I mean Northeast Middle. So we have that up and running, and it's actually in a partnership with the Mexican Consulate's office. And it is for the community. It is for people who are undocumented. It is for immigrants and people who have come here that are English language learners. And it has taken off. And so that information is available on our website where you can go and receive access and receive any type of information that you want regarding the community plazas. We started that last year. sometime probably around December or so. And it has now grown from just it being at East High School to now 2 other schools. And Hickman Mills is now looking to get on board with trying to open up one out there in their school district based on the model that we have. But that is something that is really helping to support a lot of our ELL families.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So my name is Braden Lyons. I am in the 7th grade and I go to AC Prep. So one of the main problems that I have with my school is our library. We don't have enough resources, or at least new resources. And we have computers in our library, but at the time we have around 7 of them, and out of that 7, only 1 of them work.
Computers? Mm-hmm. Okay, and I mean, we have computers, so we just need to know that. And I mean, honestly, have you gone to your principal and said, listen, we have a bunch of computers that's not working in here?
Well, I know that some of my friends, they've said it to our principal, and she's always said she's working on it, but I never really see anything happening.
All right, well, something may happen with that a lot sooner. We have school leadership in here, and so you said it's how many computers?
I'd say around 7.
Okay, all right, well, we've taken that down.
Hello, my name is Gemma Allison. I'm in the 7th grade and I go to AC Prep. My main concern is the teaching abilities. I feel like we should have more than just like math, like science and reading. Something to actually help us prepare for like adult life, like something such as home economics and some other activities to help us get ready for becoming adults.
So I think what you're saying is there needs to be more elective, or more non-core classes where you have options to do some of those type of offerings. What makes that hard is I think when you look at the number of middle school kids that are over at the school, I don't think that you guys have a large population. And so part of what we tried to do this year was really market your school. And to the point where now what's getting ready to happen on your school, you're going to start seeing a lot of people come over there and visit your school that you would not have seen before. And I may be spending a day with these people because they want to come and visit Southeast. They want to come and visit AC Prep Lower and AC Prep Middle. And so our marketing, I think, may pay dividends where you will be able to have a lot more kids, and the more students you have, it's easier then to be able to build more sections for you to have those elective classes. But when you have a limited amount of students at a school, and that's part of our problem, everybody, our middle school experience here is just not really conducive, right? Honestly, we got schools that are 6 through 12. We got schools that are K through 8. We have schools that are 7 and 8. We have schools that are 7 through 12. So the middle school experience is really fragmented here. And so you got elementaries that go K-6. And so you got some that might end at the 5th grade. But what I'm saying to you is that once again, when we talk about the inefficiencies then result in you not being able to have those classes that I think you want outside of the core classes. But you'll begin to see a lot more activity over there because of our marketing. All right, last person.
Hello, I'm Octavia Ortiz from Southeast, and it's not like really a question, it's just like feedback. Okay, so we had a 2020 leadership program and I was a part of that, and I had 2 other friends that were a part of that, and we wanted to come up with a closed closet for our school. So like if anyone has any problems with business casual or anything like that, or any clothes or like hygiene stuff, we should be able to put it in the closed closet and like help the school and the community if we wanted to. But yesterday we had the results and we actually didn't win. But this summer we're planning on doing like fundraisers so we can still get that started, so it can help us and the Southeast school. So yeah, you got any feedback on that?
Yeah, I would love for you to do it, and I think there are a tremendous amount of people in this community who will help you make that happen. So what I would say to you is you probably want to reach out to, I don't know, right here in the back, And we have some people we can talk to that will help you get that up and running. I would love to see that happen, and I'll definitely advocate for that to happen.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So that actually concludes our town hall meeting. I do want to thank you all for your feedback. It's not easy sitting up here and hearing some of these things and just thinking about all of the things that we need to do. But here's what I will assure you, that we take all of this feedback seriously. We don't want you to think that this was just a waste of your time. I think the kids who have come prior to you all sitting in this room will tell you that we have acted on a lot of the suggestions that they've given us. Will we be able to do everything that you said? No. I'm going to be very honest with you. But I'm going to do everything in my power to try to make sure that we take care of as much of it as we can. And some of these things that you said are very critical. Some of it is a process. Some of it is going to take time. And so as we are trying to build out the way that we conduct business in this school district, some of those things that you share with me will take care of itself organically through the way that we're going to run this school district over the next several years. Those of you who graduate, right, I want you to go and I want you to get your life started. You're going to college, do what you need to do. But when you come back during those winter breaks, we need you back. We need you back here, you know, sharing your experience, letting people know that they can do it and that it is obtainable, and being a value add to your community, because we have to break this cycle. Somebody's got to break it. It's got to start with you all. And if you all begin to transform the way that you think, the belief level that you have, and you believe that this superintendent genuinely cares, like I'm not here just to collect a paycheck. And I think those of you who know me and you see me around, y'all know that I care. And at the end of the day, though, I don't get to stay around if you guys aren't buying into it. If you guys don't believe it, and if you guys don't begin to do more to hold yourselves accountable, hold the adults accountable, it will never get done. It will never get done. So I want to be a part of this next generation of kids that we're going to be graduating within the next 3 to 4 years, that when you graduate, you can proudly say, I had something to do with this district becoming a fully accredited school system. And we're not far away, but we got to get people to come to school. We got to get people to stop acting a fool. We got to get our teachers to do their part. We got to get our central office to do its part. And I got to do my part. And most importantly, we got to get the community to do its part. Because otherwise, the community don't step up and help us, it's not happening. So I want to thank all of you. Great job today.